Welcome to the Pro MMA Betting podcast. Sorry I've been a bit missing in action the last few weeks, guys. The schedule is so full on at the moment with the UFC being every week, and we've had the Contender Series. You've got Bellator back as well. There's been LFA. I've just been doing so much tape. This is how I pay my bills at the end of the day. So tape and finding value bets is the priority for me over the podcast. This week we've got 5 events, so it's not slowing down at all. We've got 3 Cage Warriors events, we've got the UFC, and we've got a Bellator event. I think the schedule slows down a little bit from next week because Contender Series has taken a hiatus until the UFC leaves Yas Island, and then we've got 3 more Contender Series weeks. So I think there is a bit of a spell of Bellator events coming up, so that is going to keep me busy as well, along with the UFC. But hopefully the pace does settle down a little bit so I can get back to... I want to try and do the breakdowns every week, but it's just been difficult at the moment with the amount of shows. And we get so many lines now, more lines than ever. It's just been difficult in this COVID era where promotions are having to jam all their shows close in together so they meet their scheduling contracts, etc. and so forth. So it has been difficult. So that's why I've been a little bit hit and miss. But I didn't want to miss this week. I want to try and get back into the routine of doing it. Just real quickly, if anyone does want to sign up for the service, it's a betting service. You get live betting tips and pre-betting tips. All bets are tracked. There's 3 links below this video with links to all the trackers. They are also available on ProMMABetting.com. It's only £195 for 12 months. You get full access to pre-bets, live bets, and access to the Discord community we have, which was originally set up for the live betting tips. I freeze it during fights, so you can't see comments from anyone else. You'll just see my comments. But it has turned into a community, constant chatter among the members with regards to the fights. Lots of knowledgeable guys in there. They teach me stuff. So it's a really, really strong and vibrant community. So £195 for the year. You can sign up for a week, a month, 6 monthly, but 95% of the guys with me are with me for the year. And you've got to treat it as a long-term investment, guys. We can't win every week. There will be losing weeks. There will be peaks and troughs, good spells, bad spells. You've got to think of it like the stock market, where it's a long-term investment and the cream rises to the top long-term. You can't expect crazy results quickly. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. You have to get that out of your head. You have to accept losing weeks. You have to accept that we can't win all the time. It's betting. It's about finding value, and the key to winning in terms of betting long-term is finding that value long-term and eking out the results long-term. I do this for a job. It's my full-time job. It's proven very successful for me, but you've got to buy into the long-term strategy, guys. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. You can purchase the membership through the website. It's ProMMABetting.com, as already said. Give me a follow on Twitter at ProMMABetting. I often throw out a promotion where I do a discount on a yearly, so keep an eye on that as well. What we're going to do now is break down the card as we always do. We'll start from bottom to top. As I always say, this isn't your normal UFC podcast, guys. I don't just pick who I think is going to win. I will look at the value and determine where I feel you should lay your money. I won't always pick the value side. I don't like going against my gut, and if my gut says X fighter is going to win, but I just don't like the price, then I still will pick that particular fighter. But if it's one where I'm really undecided and I think the value's on the underdog, I will side with the underdog and pick the underdog. And if you look through the results for the last, I think I've been doing this about 18 months now, you'll see that the results are pretty good in terms of our win percentage when you consider as well that I pick a lot of underdogs. So there's a lot of money to be made in MMA and finding value, especially with the underdogs. But let's start from the bottom and work our way up. First fight on the card. I can't believe he's getting another shot. I was really surprised when I saw his name on the card. Khadis Ibragimov fighting Danilo Marques. Danilo Marques hasn't fought in 2.5 years. I went back and watched his fight with Myron Dennis on LFA, and there's one other fight available where he gets knocked out quickly. So, there's no tape in 3.5 years on him. looking at his Instagram, he's got some kind of connection with Shogun. He cornered Shogun in Shogun's at least his last couple of fights, maybe more than that. Damian Maia as well, he seems to have some kind of jiu-jitsu connection with. And, you watch the fight with Myron Dennis, you can see, back then anyway, 3.5 years ago, no stand-up, full kind of jiu-jitsu guy operating in MMA, which you used to get away with back in the day, but you can't do it in modern MMA. The only reason he's in the UFC must be due to, the UFC are desperate at the moment to put fights together. He's obviously got connections with, as I've said, Shogun, Damian Maia. And the last couple of weeks, I don't know if he's trained there before. I'm not sure if there is a longer-term connection. But from looking at his Instagram, it's only been the last couple of weeks. He's at King's MMA as well now. So there is a chance he's improved. In fact, you have to assume he's improved. He surely isn't the same fighter he was from the tape we're watching from 3.5 years ago. You've got to assume he's improved. I've had a look at his Instagram. I went back. I can't remember how far I went back. A good 6 months or so, and there was constant training pictures on there. So you have to assume he's better than he was. Khadis Ibragimov, we know the guy comes out a million miles an hour in round one, and if he doesn't put you away in round one, which he's failed to do in his UFC run so far, the guy runs out of gas. Now, he fought at a slower pace in his last fight, where he got knocked out towards the end of the first round. I think he was caught with one of them head kick or knee come head kick. It was a head kick thrown, but the actual knee landed, so it was quite fluky. You get them happen from time to time. I remember Bantamweight knocked, I can't remember the guy's name out. He caught him with one through a head kick, but just caught him with the knee. It just happens from time to time. It's really fluky, and it's quite unfortunate for the guy on the receiving end, but it is what it is. So the money's been coming in on Danilo. He's been bet down. Now, I've got to admit, part of me is tempted to bet Khadis, but I can't do it. I have a rule where I don't like to make a bet that if it doesn't come in, I will regret it. And I know 100% if Khadis messes this up and doesn't win this fight, I will 100% regret having bet on him. But I can see why people are kind of tempted. But you've also got to remember, Danilo, there's no tape in 3.5 years, guys. He's not going to be as bad as he was. I'm very, very confident he's going to look better. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be good enough to win the fight. I'm not saying he's going to look a lot better, but I'm pretty sure he's going to look better than he did. I'd be amazed if he looked like the same fighter again as we saw against Myron Dennis. You've got to be very careful with that lack of tape. So I'm going to go on my gut and pick Khadis, because I just don't know what the improvements are going to be. And the Khadis is dangerous in round one, but if he doesn't put him away in round one, this could get awfully sweaty. And I don't recommend you bet Khadis. I know I've seen people as well talking about the under, and Khadis' takedown defense is pretty good. If Danilo can't get the fight to the floor, then the likelihood is Danilo's not going to get a finish, and you're relying on a Khadis finish. And if Khadis doesn't get a finish in round one and he gasses out, it could just become a sloppy affair for the final 2 rounds. So I'm not really even that keen on the under here. I can understand why people are betting it, and it could look a great bet if Khadis comes out and just blasts him in round one. But I've just got my reservations about what happens if this fight goes past round one, and Danilo, like I say, if he can't get the fight to the floor, I don't really see a finish. So, it's just a complete pass fight for me. I can't really recommend where you put your action here. If you are betting Khadis, guys, keep it small. Please don't go big, because it could be a trap bet. So I'm going to pick Khadis with absolutely zero confidence. And it'd be interesting to see if the line comes in anymore. He's like -155 now, so that's interesting. Next fight, heavyweight fight. Jeff Hughes won Espino. Kind of similar to the Danilo fight here. Espino's not fought for a couple of years. He's had some hand injuries. He's 40 years of age. It matters less at heavyweight. He's not had many fights. I don't think he's got a lot of wear and tear, so to speak, for someone of that age. But it's still something to bear in mind. He's a big heavyweight. He wants to, you watch his Ultimate Fighter run. He wants to take you down and pound you out, and he's pretty good at it. Jeff Hughes came into the UFC with a bit of hype. Hasn't really lived up to it. Not looked too good. He trains with Stipe Miocic, but I wouldn't say he had hype, but if you look at the odds in his fights. I remember his last fight that he lost, he was a decent sized favourite. I think he was about -250 or so. And he just got outclassed in that fight, got hurt at one point. Before that, he beat Todd Duffy. Well, no, sorry, he didn't. It was a no contest, but Todd Duffy completely quit for me in that fight. He knew he was in for a rough ride. He was starting to gas out. He hadn't managed to get Hughes out of there, and I think he took the exit. And before that, you could argue he got that win over Green. It was a really close fight. You can't really argue either way, but you can make an argument that Hughes got that decision. So, I mean, the line is, for me, a bit wide here. Espino -300, 2-year layoff. We don't know what he really looks like past round one. We don't know what he looks like if he can't get the fight to the floor. What's his stand-up going to look like if he is pulled into a stand-up affair here? Hughes is a decent enough boxer. So there's a lot of question marks here for -300. So I'm not confident, but I've got to pick Jeff Hughes here based on the value. We've seen him in the last 2 years, numerous occasions. Just too many question marks, and it's heavyweight. You know, one punch changes everything at heavyweight. It's not like most of the other divisions. It can be a coin flip at heavyweight, no matter who's fighting, and I just don't see why Espino. I mean, he could come out if he gets Hughes down early, could pound him out, and he could look this -300 favourite. But you know, you've got to go with what we've seen on tape. And past round one, you know, we haven't seen Espino tested. We've seen him just controlling people on the Ultimate Fighter. We've not seen him have to deal with any adversity or get stuck on the feet. And you know, Jeff Hughes is the best guy he's faced, so it's going to be at least in the UFC. So it's going to be an interesting one. So I'm going to go with Jeff Hughes here. I'm not overly confident. Don't go big on it, guys. But Jeff Hughes +250, I think there's a bit of value there. I don't think Espino should be. I think he should be a favourite, but I don't think he should be such a big favourite. I'd have him as a much smaller favourite than that. And the overset at 1.5 as well. Fairly interesting. I mean, if you do like Hughes, then it's likely that it goes long if Hughes is going to win. And then, you know, you've got a bit of a safety net with the over that you don't need Hughes to win. Espino can still win as long as it goes past 1.5. And it's set at about -140. So I don't mind that either, but I just don't know how Hughes will deal with being stuck on the bottom, because the other unknown here is we don't really know a great deal about Hughes' takedown defence. Duffy got him down once, but he popped straight back up. Espino, a bit of a different beast in the wrestling department and the top control, so he could just get taken down and he can't get back up, and maybe Espino can do it for free. There's just a lot of unknowns at play here. But for me, when you've got that many unknowns and it's at heavyweight, you've got a guy with a 2-year layoff and he's -300, you've got to go with the dog. So I'm going to pick Jeff Hughes here, but not with any great deal of confidence. Another tough fight to call here. We've got the William Knight from the Contender Series, fought a few weeks ago. I bet him there as an underdog. I got about +130, +140 on him. Came in for me after a very ropey start, taking on Aleksa Kamor, another lad that trains with Stipe Miocic. He is coming off a UFC debut. He also fought in the Contender Series and made his UFC debut against the boxer, the guy, his name will come to me in a minute. Got the victory, but it wasn't an overly impressive performance. I'm really not sure what to make of him yet. He's still young. He's going to be improving. And William Knight, we know how raw he is. He's not really got much in the way of stand-up. He's very strong physically. He wants to get you to the ground and get on top of you. It's a really hard fight to call. Aleksa 24. We've not seen him for 9 months. Just in the depth. That's the guy he beat in his debut. I wasn't overly impressed with him on the Contender Series either, in that fight with Fabio Cherant. So, but he is young. He is improving. He's definitely got the better skill set, albeit I don't know too much about how he's going to look in terms of if he does get stuck underneath William Knight. But Knight's someone that's he's never been to a decision, but his cardio holds up well. We saw him on the Contender Series before against Hakeem Aleksa, and it was a really high-paced fight, and Knight was fine when it went deep into round 3 there. So even though we've never seen a decision, I'm not concerned about his cardio. I'm more concerned about Aleksa's, because he didn't look good in that fight in his UFC debut. He was definitely slowing down in it against Ľudovít, but Ľudovít, you know what Ľudovít's like. He just, he could have won that fight if he put his foot down, but he just never did. So it's a tough one, this, because you've got Claymore, who is the more skilled fighter, but I just think Knight's got a bit more will to win, a bit more grit. He's definitely got better cardio based off of Claymore's UFC debut. I'm just seeing if he's ever been that deep before. See, all these other fights are over in a round or the second round. There he was, taking deep. And it wasn't even a fast-paced fight, because like I said, he doesn't push a pace or anything, and he slowed down. So Knight could make this really interesting. The deeper he can drag it. So, but if he can't get the fight to the floor, I think he is going to get outstruck. But I'm going to... this is a tough one. I really don't know here. I really don't know. I can't recommend a bet on the fight at all, because I'm not overly confident in Knight. Knight is flawed. You saw it in his last fight. He nearly got stopped right off the bat. He is a flawed fighter, and you go back and watch his fight with Rocky Edwards. He has a really bad round 2 in that fight, but he manages to survive. I'm going to pick Claymore here, but it's not a confident pick at all. I'm just picking him because I think he is the better mixed martial artist. But if this fight goes deep, this could get real sweaty. So I'm not confident betting Claymore here. He's around minus 160, but I've got no confidence in that bet. And William Knight is at the same price that I got him on the Contender Series, and no Bueno for me, because the Contender Series guy he was facing, in my opinion, was very unproven. At least Aleksa's, being a decent guy and just in the debt. I know a bit more about him. The guy in the Contender Series, it was a bit of a blind bet, but the guy had only had, I think, 5 fights, and I'd watched a couple of his regional fights. Nothing really impressed me about him. At least with Claymore, he's quite dangerous on the feet. He's training with Miocic. He's young. Should be improving. And he has got a decent enough win over Justin Ľudovít. So when I'm getting the same price on Knight here as I've got on the Contender Series, I'm not feeling it, because I think he's got a tougher opponent here. So I'll pick Aleksa Claymore, but I'm definitely not confident. The over might be interesting. It's near enough even money. Knight is pretty durable. He did get stopped, but it was a premature stoppage and it was on the ground. A lot of the fight might play out in the clinch, because Knight's going to will be trying to get him down, and you could see a lot of clinch fighting initially. And Aleksa, like I say, he's put away some bad competition, but on the Contender Series didn't look great. I think he got the stoppage in the end from a flying knee, so quite low percentage, and then never really had Ľudovít hurt, I don't think, from memory. So, to be honest, the over might be the more interesting play there. That's something I'm actually going to think about, and it is sitting at minus 120, which I don't think is too bad. But with light heavyweights, anything can happen. Next, we've got best fight of the evening so far. We've got Shane Young taking on Ľudovít Klein. So Shane Young, we've not seen him for about 18 months now. He's been quite open. He had some mental health issues, took some time out, coming back here. He's still young. He's only 26 or 27. I like Shane Young, but I think he's someone that's quite easy to read in terms of, from a betting perspective. I bet him in both of his UFC fights. He's basically a guy that will get in your face. He'll keep coming forward. He doesn't mind taking one to give one. Doesn't really use too much wrestling. He will clinch up with you on the fence, and he might threaten with the odd takedown, but it's not his strong suit. His strong suit is moving forward and throwing hands, and he'll happily eat one to deliver one. Never been KO'd, so he's got a good chin. Facing a late notice replacement here in Klein, who is from the European MMA circuit. I saw him about 3 years ago in Cage Warriors, where he lost, but it looks like he's made some significant improvements since. Now, I went back and watched his last 4 fights. Let me just bring up his record. And, I mean, it's a little bit hard to get a full read on him just because of the problem with these guys that are coming from the regional scene is it's really hard to get a read on the opposition. How good is the opposition they're facing? Is the opposition poor and it's just making them look better than they are? Also, is there an element to someone like Klein fighting down to his level of opposition? It's something you have to be very careful with fighters that are coming off the regional scene. The positives I do like with him is only 25 years of age. Now, when I saw him in Cage Warriors, he would have been 21 or 22. He's in the learning curve of his career, the stage where you should be making developments from fight to fight. Now, I went back and watched his last 4 fights. Now, I watched the RB Mezhidov fight, which is about 2 years ago. Won a decision there. Didn't do anything special in that fight. Now, I don't know how good RB is. RB might be a very talented fighter. He might not be, but I think blew me away there. But then you watch his next 3 fights and he looks like a completely different fighter. Now, he beats William Lima, who looks huge for featherweight. But I've got no idea how good he is. He's got like a 12-1, 13-1 record, but I just don't know how good that guy is. You know, he looked the part, he looked big, but I mean, Klein dealt with him very nicely. He was getting backed up initially, but then he started pushing Lima back and got a really nice knockout. Then he fought a very overmatched Brazilian journeyman, got the knockout with a head kick in the 3rd round. And then his last fight was against Łukasz Szyjewski, who you may recall from the UFC, fought Mark Diakase and Gilbert Burns. Lost both those fights. Got taken down early, which is what Szyjewski done or would attempt to do in the UFC. I think he took the 1st round off Diakase with that game plan, but then ultimately he got taken apart late in round 1 and got knocked out. So Klein does look fairly promising. He's a southpaw. He's well educated on the feet. Question marks for me with him is has his level of opposition made him look better than he is? There's definitely a big leap between that RB and Lima fight. Like, he looks like a completely different fighter to me. He looks like he's changed physically as well. So that does pose the question: is he maybe experimenting with something? Because physically he looks very big for featherweight now. He also, now, if you look at his record, he's had a lot of fights. He's had like 18 fights. He's only ever been to a decision once. So cardio becomes a bit of a question mark as well. He definitely slowed down in that fight with RB, which was his only fight that's gone to a decision. Definitely slowed there. I mean, he was fine in round 3 versus the Brazilian, but it was all one-way traffic. It was a fight he was completely dictating, whereas the RB fight was more back and forth. So there is that question mark because, you know, Shane Young's never been taken out. It's going to be hard for him to stop Young. So it's probably going to be a 3-round fight, and he is taking this on fairly short notice as well. The other thing as well is it's highly likely Shane Young's going to be the one moving forward here. When I watched Klein's fights, he's the guy that tends to be dictating kind of the pace of the fight. It's unlikely he's going to have that opportunity here with Shane Young, and he also likes that head kick from southpaw. Now, if you're on the back foot, it's a lot harder to land that head kick. So there's question marks there for me, but he does look good, and the blueprint to beat Shane Young is pretty straightforward. He's not going to grapple Shane Young, but on the feet, speed and footwork. And now Shane Young, he dealt with those 2 guys he fought, Rolando D and Austin Arnett, but you know, they had moments of success. Shane Young's very hittable. As I said, I bet him in both those fights, and Rolando D was coming back into that fight at one point in round 2. I remember it started to get a little bit sweaty, and then Austin Arnett, he was having a lot of success using that kind of boxing footwork style, but Shane Young was just having the bigger moments in the fight and landing the bigger punches. But for me, it's just whether Klein can he hit a move for 3 rounds and live with a pace that Shane Young's going to set. That's the question mark. A lot of actions come in on Klein here. A lot of people like him. It's moving towards a pick'em line. I understand why people were taking Klein, especially when he was up at the plus 150. But I can see him having a good opening round, and then just my gut's just telling me he's going to end up slowing down to the pressure and start eating shots. So I've got to pick Shane Young here, but I'm reluctant to part with any cash because the blueprint is clear to beat Shane Young. You just need to move your feet, be faster than him. He's not particularly fast. I mean, out of all the city kickboxing guys, he's the one, in my opinion, with the lowest ceiling, but he is tough, very tenacious, and that can go a long way in MMA. We've seen it with many fighters that probably shouldn't have gone as far as they did, but toughness in that octagon goes a long, long way, and that kind of style he's got. And I can just see Klein starting to wilt under the pressure, but it might be a good live bet fight because it wouldn't surprise me if Klein comes out and has a really good round one, and then you get good odds on Shane Young because you know someone like Shane Young's going to keep coming. He's going to fight for your money, but I am reluctant to bet him just because I can see how Klein can pose problems. But again, the level of opposition. But having said that, look at Shane Young. You know, the two guys he's beat, Austin Arnett and Rolando D. Neither of them are in the UFC anymore. I don't know if either of them even got a win in the UFC. I can't be bothered to check their records, but if they did, maybe one between them. You know, they're not UFC caliber guys. So, and Shane Young didn't go out and blow them away. So it's a very interesting fight. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to go with Shane Young. I probably would have picked Klein if the odds were still plus 150 on Klein, but now it's moving more towards a pick'em. I'll go with the guy I do know more about, but there is an 18-month layoff there. But in terms of my approach to this fight, I will probably live bet it and hope that Klein has a really good round one, and then look at an angle to bet Shane Young because he's going to keep coming. He's hard to stop. And Klein is in on short notice, and for me there's a question mark over his cardio with his lack of 3-round experience, and the one time he's seen the end of a fight, he definitely was slowing down. So Shane Young, but it's a hard fight to call, and at current odds I don't really think there's any value on that pick, guys. Let's have a quick look at the over, but I can't imagine it holding much. Oh, do you know what? The overs and the unders favoured. That's interesting. That is interesting. I can see it getting sweaty though, because I can see him slowing down Klein, and then Shane Young, it wouldn't surprise him if he got a stoppage second half of the fight. So I can see why people would be on the under here, but I'd be very surprised if Klein stops Shane Young. Next fight on the card we have Diego Sanchez, Jake Matthews. He's going to have Stefan Bonner in his corner. Apparently they've been on some UFO sightseeing camping trip in the desert. Really quickly, I'm going to pick Jake Matthews here. He's unbettable. He's minus 700. I think you need to discern where the value is on this fight, and it's probably on betting the over or Matthews' decision or Matthews inside the distance, whichever way you think the fight goes. The over is about minus 170 at 2.5. Not bad. I'm not looked into this fight. I'll look at their records in a sec just to refresh on Matthews finishing. But my mind is telling me that this is going to a decision. Fight goes to decision minus 150. And Matthews by decision is paying even money. I mean, that seems the way to go on this fight for me. Let's just double check their records because I've not done any tape on it. The line was well out of hand from when it opened. I wasn't going to spend any time on this. Matthews, for me, in my head, historically, he's not a finisher. 16-4. Let's just look at his UFC finish rate because the regional scene doesn't really apply here. So UFC, late triangle finish there. He got a submission there. Doctor stoppage, yeah, that was a cut on Areola if I remember right. He did put Johnny Case, so his first 4 wins he put the guys away. Bojan is durable, Lee durable, Anzai should be putting him away. Roster Macman and Emil Meek. So I mean he has finished a few guys in the UFC. If you look at his record, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's finished 5 guys and gone to a decision with 1, 2, 3. Only gone to a decision. I'm not including his losses here. Just looking at the wins. His last two have gone to a decision. Lee went to a decision. And Bojan. So he's kind of like, I think he's 4-4 on inside the distance and KOs, and the decisions have actually all come in. His 4 of his last 5 wins in the UFC have been by decision. He did drop Lee. He fought really aggressive in that fight, kind of a bit of an out of character performance that fight was. Diego is historically he's always been durable. He definitely looks chinny on the feet now, and he's got 4 KO losses. The elbow from Matt Brown. Iaquinta put him away with a punch quickly. I mean, Joe Lozon as well. I caught him. It is a tough one because Jake Matthews, you feel, he's got to be aggressive here. This is a guy he can and maybe should be putting away at this stage of his career because the durability. I mean, looking at the record, I'm not as confident as I was on this perhaps being a Matthews decision. I forgot that Joe Lozon put Sanchez away. That's a concern. I remember Al and Matt putting him away. See, Chiesa he went the distance with. It was a grappling match. I mean, he nearly went the distance with Pereira though, but he was kind of backing up the whole fight. Pereira wasn't really pushing the action, but Will Matthews, he's not really that type of guy. I think he'd do well to, I don't see him submitting Diego, and I think he'd do well to put him away. I mean, has Jake ever got a standing knockout in the UFC? Let's look at the wins inside the distance again. I don't think he has. And Zaya was on the mat. I think he might have dropped him. Johnny Case, I mean, it was a submission. Arreola was a cut. I think he did drop Arreola, or did Arreola drop? I think Arreola dropped him actually. Fagnarosha, he did drop and he followed up. It was a club and sub. But, I mean, he's not someone that goes out and lights people up on the feet. I think maybe there's a little, I would have preferred a plus number on Matthews' decision, but, maybe there's a little bit of value there. But if you're Matthews, you should be coming out here trying to put this guy away. You shouldn't be messing around on the feet. Slow-paced fight. Diego doesn't offer anything on the feet. It's going to be a big size advantage. Matthews, even though he used to fight a lightweight, he's a big welterweight, very thick. So, I don't know. I don't know if there is any value there. Just pass fight for me. I'll have a little think, but I think it's just a pass fight for me. Next fight on the card, we've got... it's the last fight of the prelims. We've got Brad Riddell taking on Aleksa Silva. Brad Riddell, he's looked pretty good to me in the UFC. Had a bit of a slobber knocker in his UFC debut, and he ended up getting caught at one point as well. He got a little bit overexcited, I think, but he put on a show and he put a beating on that guy. His last fight was against Mustafayev. Mustafayev wasn't really interested in trading on the feet. He was trying to wrestle. Now, he took Brad down a lot. If you look at the stats, it says Brad got taken down a hell of a lot in that fight. But, I mean, he did get put on his bum, but he was never really held down. He got up every time. He does give his back when he's standing up, so that's something that he will have to be careful with against better grapplers. But he done the better work on the feet when they were separated. He dropped Mustafayev at one point as well. I don't agree it was a split decision. I thought he won 2 of the rounds there. He's taken on Aleksa Silva, who we've seen a couple of times in the UFC now. He lost his debut to Yakovlev, started well, but ended up getting submitted. And then he basically wrestled Rodrigo Vargas in his last fight. I have to go with Brad Riddell here. I mean, from what I've seen from Aleksa Silva in the UFC, he tries to grapple in both fights. I don't see him having much joy getting Brad Riddell to the floor. Mustafayev couldn't ever secure a position. I don't think Alex will either, and I think he's outmatched on the feet. I mean, Brad is, minus 300 odds, so it's tough to get behind a price like that, but I still have to pick him. Alex has got a good record. He's 21-2. He's done well in the regional scene, but, you saw against Yakovlev that, and Yakovlev is borderline UFC level. You see what happens when most of these guys step up from the regional scene with really good records. It's a whole different kettle of fish in the UFC. So I think he's going to be outgunned here. I don't think he can hold Riddell down and on the feet. I think he's going to get possibly stopped. But it makes me a little bit nervous betting inside the distance here, though, because I think Alex is going to try and grapple. And if you think back to the Mustafa fight, Brad, he did get held on the fence for long periods. Could we have a repeat here? Because, as I say, Alex isn't going to want to mess around on the feet with Brad. But if he can get separation and we get a stand-up fight, then that could spell trouble for Alex, and he could get put away. But I'm not really confident on it. I'm not seeing. Let me just have a double check on the lines, but I mean the over's pretty much even money. Riddell by KO is plus 130. See, that's no good. It's rubbish. There's just not value. Riddell inside the distance plus 130. Riddell decision plus 160. Yeah, I'm not really liking any of them props, to be honest. I mean, I think Riddell's fairly safe there. If you like your parlays and you want a leg for a double, I don't think Riddell's a bad one. You can get minus 310 at a couple of books still, but I imagine he's going to close more like minus 350, even approaching minus 400. Onto the main card now. First fight of the night is Hakeem Dawodu taking on Zubaira Tukhugov. I taped this fight a couple of weeks ago, so my memory of it might be a little bit cloudy, but I came away I went into tape thinking I was going to like Hakeem, but I came away just not being confident at all. There's just something about Hakeem that I don't like. I can't really put my finger on it. I don't know if he's got an air of flakiness. I'm really not sure, but I remember before his UFC debut, I went away and done tape on him. I remember Steven Sijara hurting him in their fight on the feet, which really concerned me. And then you had the Danny Henry fight when he made his UFC debut, where he gets hurt badly on the feet and ends up getting submitted. So I do have in the back of my mind some concerns with regards to his chin. I think against Hori, he got. They never showed a replay, but I'm sure there's a point in round one where he gets dropped, but I'm not sure if it was an actual slip. But there was a point as well where Arce seemed to. He didn't drop him, but he definitely seemed to buckle his leg. So I do just have this concern about his chin. He can be taken down, but he is really good at getting back to his feet. But what he does do is he does give his back up, and his back can be taken. But he is really good at defending and escaping when his back's taken. But obviously it's not a desirable trait. He does have really good cardio. Excuse me. He does work the body well. Really goes to the body well. He's one of the better MMA fighters that I've seen that will work the body. But my other concern with him is judges just don't seem to love his style. Like the Cole Botniak fight, I thought he clearly won that fight, but it ended up being a split decision. The Arce fight, I mean, it was a close fight. Again, went to a split decision. He just doesn't put a big stamp on fights. And also, I'm not sure if he's a particularly big puncher. Against Hori, he just kind of gassed out and he put him away in the end, late in round 3. But otherwise, he's going to decisions, and he's not really looking like he's going to put people away. He's not a one punch kind of KO artist. Zubaira, he's coming off. The guy cracks. So if he does land, I'm trying to think. I think it's the left hook that's his dangerous punch. I've done tape a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure it's his left hook that's dangerous. Now, I mean, left hook is a low percentage move because Zubaira doesn't set it up. He throws it naked. It generally doesn't land, but he has found a home for it in the UFC. He dropped Lerone Murphy with it. I think it's what put Kevin Aguilar away. He does have good timing with it, and he clearly does have power. Quick win over Kevin Aguilar. Before that, the draw with Lerone Murphy, where he was definitely outmatched on the feet, but he managed to get his wrestling going. And then before that, he had the split decision with Canero, or Moicano as he's known as. Do you know what? I'm trying to remember the fight. I did watch it when I've done tape on this, and I haven't got a great memory of it, but it was like 4 odd years ago. So this is one that I've just really, really struggled with. I think Hakeem's gone back as the underdog, so I'm going to pick Hakeem because he's the dog here. He's not really much of a dog, plus 100, minus 110. I feel it is a pick-on fight. I don't really feel there's much value on the line either way. It's a tough one to call. So look at the overs. Any value here? Over is minus 200. I don't see Dawodu putting Zubaira away. So I think if you're betting the over, you just have to worry about Tukhugov probably landing that left hook. And, it is low percentage. But I do have concerns about Dawodu's chin at the end of the day. So, I don't love betting overs at minus 200. They're sweaty enough without paying a premium on the price. So I don't see a great deal of value in this fight from a betting perspective. I'm going to pick Dawodu just to do enough on the feet, and if he does get taken down, to work back to his feet. But I'm not fully sold on him, and at this price, I'm not particularly interested in either guy. Zubaira does slow down as well. That's to note. He can slow down in fights, and as I mentioned, Dawodu really good cardio. So the later the fight goes, I'd have to definitely favour Dawodu in round 3. So then you're looking at, does Zubaira need to win the first couple of rounds? So I'll go with Hakeem, but it's definitely not a confident pick. I've just got some gut reservations with regards to Hakeem. Next, in the women's 135 division, we've got Ketlen Vieira taking on Sarge Eubanks. Sarge, really quick turnaround. She only fought last week. She's stepping in here because I can't remember the girl who pulled out. But it's definitely made this more interesting because I hadn't even looked at the previous fight because Ketlen was like minus 350. I wasn't interested. Much smaller favourite here. She's has hovered between minus 160 and minus 170. She's minus 170 at most books at the moment, albeit there's Pinnacle. She's actually almost minus 200 now. So Ketlen's coming back from a KO loss to Irene Aldana after having a bit of a long layoff. I thought she looked pretty good against Aldana. She was winning the round. She was landing good solid shots. She got caught, funnily enough, we've just been talking about a naked left hook, low percentage. She just got caught with the shot of Irene Aldana's career. I doubt she's ever going to land another shot like that. One punch with a naked left hook. Extremely rare to see, especially in women's MMA, but she got put out cold. So the reservation here is, how is Vieira going to react to coming back off of a KO loss? Because normally, she's an aggressive girl. She's normally the one on the front foot. Doesn't mind taking a shot. She'll throw her punches. So I wonder if there's any lingering mental effects there. Sarge, as I said, only fought last week. Now, this is going to be her third weight cut in 3 weeks because she had a fight scheduled the week before that she cut weight for that didn't happen. She's cut weight for the Avila fight, and now she's cutting weight for this fight. Now, cutting weight week after week, it takes its time on your body. I don't know how much Sarge is cutting. She used to struggle to make 125. Don't know how much she cuts to get to 135. But your body does break down having to cut weight because it's not healthy. It's not a healthy thing. So there's a point where these weight cuts are definitely going to catch up with her, and this is probably going to go 3 rounds. And, Sarge has historically had some cardio issues. So how is she going to look again? She's got a long flight as well. I don't know when she flew out, but, there's quite a lot she's got to deal with here. She's coming off a good win over Julia Avila. She lost the first round, but she managed to get her wrestling going basically to win that fight in rounds 2 and 3. Now, Ketlen Vieira is a lot better than Julia Avila in terms of the fundamentals, in terms of wrestling. We've seen that in Ketlen's previous fights. I mean, she out-wrestled Kat Zingano. She also took down Sarah McMahon and finished her. But she's got good wrestling. She's a big girl as well for 135. She's bigger than Sarge, and we've seen Sarge struggle in the clinch in previous fights. She got muscled by Aspen Ladd, taken down by her. She also got taken down by Roxy. I know Roxy's got tricky takedowns, but physically she's not the most imposing girl, and that was down at 125 as well. Also saw her taken down by, that might be actually, I don't think Sarah Moraz didn't take her down. Julia Avila did though. Julia Avila got a takedown in round 1. So I honestly feel that, Sarge's path to victory here is similar to how she beat Avila, but I just think she's going to struggle to get Ketlen down. And I honestly feel if she engages in that kind of warfare with Ketlen, I think Ketlen's more likely to land on top, to be honest. I think Ketlen can take her down. On the feet, I favour Ketlen as well. She's got an inch reach advantage, but she's got 4 inches of height. She throws her punches straighter. Sarge can throw quite wide, and she does it more so as she starts to tire as well. And she does slow down in high-paced fights. We've seen it before, and her punches come slower and slower. So I can see her eating shots on the feet here. So I actually quite like Ketlen Vieira here. As I said, coming back from the KO is how will she come back from that? Is she still going to fight the same? But I think as long as she does, I can see her winning this fight on the feet or on the ground. I think it's a tough fight for Sarge, and as we've already mentioned, third weight cut in 3 weeks. Julia Avila, it was a good win, but Julia, relies on her power. You can see, she's good at framing in the clinch, but wrestling-wise, you can see she's quite flawed fundamentally. Ketlen's not. Go and watch her fights. You can see she knows what she's doing. She uses the whizzer well. She hand fights. And she did win, I know it doesn't mean much because it's Brazilian, but she did win some Brazilian national wrestling title as well. So, and she's a big girl. She knows what she's doing. And she's dealt with better wrestlers than Sarge in the past. And I do favour her on the feet here as well. So I'm going to go with Ketlen Vieira here. I do like her in this spot. Next, we've got Brandon Royval, Kai Kara France. Look, I can't pay the premium price on Kai Kara France here of minus 220 or so. I can't bet him at that kind of price. I'm still not fully sold on him. He may have a good stylistic fight here. Now, the question marks here for me with Brandon Royval is we haven't seen his stand-up really in a couple of years. You have to go back to the fight with Casey Kenny to really see stand-up. That was 2 years ago. Joby Sanchez fight I can't find. Nate Williams fight's over in 20 seconds, and the Tim Elliott fight is mainly pretty much all grappling. Now, from the brief stand-up exchanges against Elliott, his stand-up kind of looks the same. He barrels forward, he's aggressive, but he can be hit. And Kai Kara France is a good counter-fighter. If he hasn't shored up his defence and it is still pretty much the same, then there's a good chance he's going to just be eating counters from Kai Kara. Royval is a good grappler, but I really don't think he's going to get Kai down to the mat here. I think Kai has shown his takedown defence is pretty solid. So I do see this fight playing out on the feet. And that is, as I say, where the unknown really is, because, 2 years is a long time. He could have really shored up his stand-up. He's only 28 and he's just started training full-time. As soon as he won that fight with Tim Elliott, he went full-time. So he's had a few months of training full-time for the first time in his career here. It's a short time period, but it could make all the difference, because when you're working full time and having to train on top, it's a big ask. But now training full time, that's definitely going to help him. But I am going to pick Kai here, but I definitely don't feel there's value on the line. I'm just sticking with my gut here. I can just see Royval getting countered because he is open on the feet. If you go and watch the Casey Kenny fight, excuse me, you will see that Casey is landing some big shots. Now, don't get me wrong, he's catching Kenny as well. He is aggressive and he will land shots, but Kai does crack fairly hard for a flyweight. I just think he lands the more powerful, impactful, eye-catching shots here, and I don't think Royval gets it to the mat. So I'm going to pick Kai, but I just personally, just with the unknown there with Royval and Kai not being really a minus 220 type guy for me, I have to avoid betting him. I don't think Royval can kind of match what Paiva done. I think Paiva's a bit more, that guy's got a granite chin. He'd just keep moving forward. He looked off in his last fight, I must say, Paiva. But before, going off the fight with Kai Kara, he was just moving forward in his face constantly. And, we saw Kai Kara struggle with someone like that in Brandon Moreno. But I think Moreno is probably a fair bit more skilled on the feet than Royval, and just a bit more sturdy as well. Royval looks a little bit kind of physically maybe not the strongest guy at 125, whereas someone like Moreno, very scrambly, will move forward, and he does have decent hands himself. But there is upset potential there. It wouldn't shock me at all if Brandon pulls this out by pressuring and it just really getting to Kai. But I'm gonna pick Kai, but at that price, no, thank you. Next fight is the co-main event for the vacant light heavyweight title. Dominick Reyes taking on Jan Błachowicz. Good fight here. I'm looking forward to it. I like Dominick Reyes. I've bet him a few times in his UFC career. By the time I kind of got round to looking at this fight, the odds had got too far apart, minus 250. I can't be betting that for Dominick, just because I do have concerns about his cardio. He slows down in all of his fights. He comes out very hot in round 1 and 2, but if he doesn't put you away, then there is just a gradual slowdown with his output. Now, it may not matter here because Jan is not a high volume guy. He's not someone really that will fight at a high pace. So this might be the perfect fight for Reyes with his style to get away with slowing down, and kind of like in the OSP fight, because with OSP he came out shit hot in round 1, put it on OSP, blew him apart, couldn't put him away though, and then round 2 and round 3 the volume dropped off massively. But because OSP isn't a high volume guy, he was still doing enough to nick the rounds, and I mean obviously he knocked him out right at the end of the 3rd round. But Jan also has to survive the early part of this fight, because we've seen what Reyes can do early. Chris Weidman fight, Jared Cannonier fight, Joachim Christiansen fight. And he fought well against John Jones. I mean, John Jones has unbelievable cardio, and there definitely is a case can be made that Reyes was free up going into round 4 and 5 there. Definitely. I remember live betting Reyes at a silly price, and I had a feeling he wasn't going to get the decision against John Jones in a close fight, but I had to play the value. I can't remember what we got now. I'd have to check my tracker, but we took Reyes at a very solid price in round 3, I think, or round 4. But he definitely lost rounds 4 and 5. But the problem here for Jan is, does he have that kind of pressure style that is going to get to Reyes and enable him to win the second half of the fight? If not, he's going to need a knockout. And I mean, Dominick has shown a pretty solid chin so far in his UFC run. Now Jan does crack, but is he going to be able to put Reyes away? I mean, he's coming off the win over Corey, who we know his chin's always been dodgy. Same with Luke Rockhold. You know, I mean, I'm not saying Jan doesn't hit hard. He clearly does. I wouldn't like to take a whack off him, but someone like Dominick Reyes is, I mean, it's probably the fastest guy Jan's ever fought. I'm just having a quick scan of his record. There's a lot of movement there, very fast. I just think Jan's going to struggle with that movement. Like I say, second half of the fight, it could get interesting if Reyes slows down, but I still feel that even Reyes at a slower pace, you know, he can still probably nick rounds, even when he's slowed down. I just think it's an uphill battle for Jan. Like I said, I didn't look into this fight until the price had gone. Kind of regret it now, because minus 200 or so, I might have been interested in Reyes, but he's getting bet more and more as the week goes on. He's getting up for minus 300 now. So, you know, I do think it's a bit wide when you factor in the cardio aspect. But with Jan's low volume and him not fighting at a high pace himself, and you have to remember as well, Jan used to gas really bad in fights. There's a lot of stuff going around that he changed doctor, and it's, you know, there's definitely been improvements in his game, his wrestling defence, and seemingly his cardio as well. But we haven't seen him over 5 rounds before, and for someone that used to have cardio issues himself, I mean, if he slows down a bit, then it's game over for him. So, I mean, the more I think about this fight, the more I think Dominick Reyes is going to win. But just the price is just a bit high for me. And I don't have any real feeling on the props here. He could put Jan away. I think the longer the fight goes, the less likely it is. But we have seen Jan put away Thiago Santos, put him away, and he's a very dangerous fighter, really, Dominick Reyes. So, and it'd be interesting to see how Dominick approaches this fight. I mean, you know that he slows down in fights. I wonder if he comes out and just paces himself a bit more. But then that might take away that finishing threat he has in the early part of the fight. But when you're fighting over 5 rounds all the time, you've probably got to be a bit more careful, because if you do, you know, it is harder to finish at a higher level. So you are likely to be going deep into fights. So, you know, he's got to find a balance in that there. But I am going to pick Dominick Reyes, but I can't really get behind the price. I do regret missing that minus 200 line, I have to say. Main event time. We've got Izzy Adesanya, the middleweight champ, taking on Paulo Costa. Long anticipated fight this one is. Look, I think, I'm not saying it's easy to pick a winner here, but the breakdown of the actual fight is fairly easy. Izzy is going to try and hit a move here, maybe put it on Costa as he slows down late into the fight. Costa most likely needs to catch Izzy, and he probably will need to catch him in the first couple of rounds, I would have thought. But having said that, when you've got the power of someone like Costa, 5-round fight is dangerous for Izzy for the duration. Izzy does have the kind of style where, as good as he is, every time I watch him, I just say to myself, he's going to get clipped at some point because of how he defends shots. Now, he relies on his speed, his athleticism. At some point, you're going to get caught. This is MMA. It's 4-ounce gloves. You're going to eat a monster shot at some point, and someone's going to put you away. I definitely think it's on the cards. Could it happen here? Possibly. Izzy's got a massive reach advantage here, 8 inches. So we know what he's going to be doing. He's going to be hitting and moving here. He had a bit of a staring match with Yoel Romero, but Yoel, he doesn't, fights in spurts. I think Costa is going to be more aggressive than Yoel. You can't sit back here and try and out-kickbox Izzy Adesanya. It's not going to work, especially when you're at an 8-inch reach advantage, for God's sakes. So Costa, he's going to have to take risks. He needs to come in. He needs to try and close the gap. He needs to try and land hands on Izzy. Izzy isn't a big puncher. You watch the Rob Whittaker fight, and they were just beautifully timed shots as Whittaker was coming in, just landed perfectly on the button. Those kind of shots are going to put people away. In terms of like raw power, he's not a massive puncher, but Costa could definitely walk into something because he's got to close the gap here. And when you're come crashing in and you walk into a punch that you don't see, that's the most dangerous shot there is. So I'm not saying he can't knock him out. He can, if Costa gets overzealous, gets careless. But at the end of the day, Costa's going to have to take some risks to try and win this fight. We haven't seen him for a year now. We last saw him against Yoel Romero back in, I think it was August 2019. I'll just bring up his record. He's 13-0, so someone's O has to go here. A lot on the line. He's from 13 fights, 11 KO wins, 1 submission. He's been to a decision once, and that was against Yoel Romero. So the question as well is cardio. Costa is a big middleweight. The guy's ginormous. How's he going to look in a 5-round fight here? Question marks. If he can't put Izzy away early, how is he then going to approach it? Is he going to fall into kind of a bit of a rhythm of just getting picked off, getting peed off, getting impatient, starts making mistakes? We saw him struggle with Uriah Hall's jab. He eventually got to Uriah Hall and put him away. But, Adesanya's on a different level to Uriah Hall. This is one of, if not the best strikers we've seen in the UFC. I mean, when you look at Costa's resume, you've got, his first 3 wins aren't great. That was a shock Johnny Hendricks. I mean, they're good in the sense that he'd done what he had to do, put them away. Got a bit of a step up against Uriah Hall, struggled a bit there early on, managed to put him away. But, Uriah Hall is tricky. He's hard to look good against. He's a very dangerous striker. And then he's coming off that win over Yoel Romero, where Romero started to have more success as we got deeper into the fight. And it's the first time, as already mentioned, that Costa's been to a decision. And he definitely slowed down in that fight. So there's a lot for him to contend with here. He's going to have to go to, he doesn't have to go the distance. He's probably going to lose if it goes the distance. But how is he going to look over 5 rounds? How is he going to deal with the reach disadvantage? What is his approach going to be? Izzy, I imagine, is going to be kind of very reluctant to engage early on. He's going to be making his reads on Costa. Costa is probably going to be a little bit reluctant as well, especially on a fresh Izzy. But Izzy's the kind of guy that's not going to slow down. He's had so many fights outside of MMA even. Guy's relaxed as hell in there. He's not going to gas. Costa probably is going to slow down, especially if it's a high-paced fight. And like I said, he needs to make it a high-paced fight. He needs to get in Izzy's face. He can't just stand back at range and have a kickboxing match with Adesanya. It's not going to work for him. So I'm picking Izzy here. I think Costa, he's going to be dangerous all 5 rounds because of the power he carries. And, when you're in a 5-round fight against a power puncher, the longer the fight goes, the more likely you are to get caught, especially if they don't slow down. So Izzy's going to have to, mind his P's and Q's here for 5 rounds, unless he can put Costa away, catch him coming in with something. But I think the likelihood is Izzy probably wins this over the 5 rounds. For me personally, I think the better play on this fight is the over 2.5, which was sitting at around -120, -130, because I think if you like Izzy, it's highly likely that if Izzy wins, it goes past 2.5 rounds and you're getting a better price on it. That's my personal feel. If you like Costa, obviously that's not such a good play because you're probably going to need a KO in the first couple of rounds, most likely. And also, of course, Costa's money line is sitting at like +150, so you'd obviously take that anyway if you like Costa. But for me, I prefer the over 2.5 to Izzy's money line personally, and I'm picking Izzy here. I think he probably wins a decision, but he needs to be really careful because I don't think Costa is going to sit back like Romero did. He has to bring it to Izzy. It's a fight, for God's sakes. You're a professional fighter, because you see this sometimes. Fighters go in and they don't fight, and I know it's easy for me to say that I'm the one sitting behind a computer. I'm not getting hit in the face, but man, you're fighting for the world title. You can't take a bath without getting wet. It's the same with fighting. You can't get in a fight without getting hit. Unless you're the Matrix. You're going to get hit, and you are facing a great striker. But you signed the dotted line, man. You want the fight. You got to go and put it on him. You've got to be careful. I'm not saying for Costa to go out and be stupidly reckless, but he's got to bring the fight to Izzy. Otherwise, he's not going to win the fight. I haven't touched on the grappling or anything. I can't see this fight playing out on the floor at all. I think we're just going to have a stand-up fight for as long as it lasts. But my pick is I'm going to go with Izzy to retain his title here. So that breaks down the card, guys. Good luck with your bets. Hopefully we can make some money. As I said earlier, yearly's only £195. I'm hoping we're going to have a lot of bets this weekend. We've got Bellator, 3 Cage Warriors, still waiting for lines on Cage Warriors. And we've got the UFC, of course. We're going to have live betting for the UFC. I'm not sure if there's going to be live betting for the Cage Warriors shows or Bellator. We'll just have to play that by ear. But yeah, it's a really, really busy weekend. So good luck, everyone. ProMMABetting.com if you want to sign up to the service. And hopefully we can make some money. Good luck, everyone.